Chapter 671, I control my destiny and not the heavens. The grandest eulogy of humans. From the perspective of the ninth heaven mystic fairy, the Xuanhuan faction had turned evil in their minds, and the heavenly Tao wouldn't allow such evil people to ascend and become immortals. However, Xuanhuan thought that the heavenly Tao was only an excuse of the God realm. How could one word from the God realm decide the fate of mortals? Heaven is above me, so I respect it. However, if the God realm wants to push me around, you can keep on dreaming. The ninth heaven mystic fairy's voice remained mild. Ignorant mortals think that their lives are as tiny as weeds and regard the gods and immortals as lofty beings. However, you don't understand the rules of the heavenly Tao. Even gods and immortals have to follow the mandate of heaven. The Xuanhuan faction chief Su Yao murmured, "Mandate of heaven? Do you mean that the dream which the Xuanhuan faction had pursued for generations is just a fabricated fantasy?" But our faction removed demons and protected the humans in the world. All our deeds are evil instead of virtuous. The ninth heaven mystic fairy answered her in a cold voice, "Humans and demons are not born with goodness or evilness in them. If the demons don't do evil things, why should you kill them?" The Xuanhuan faction slaughtered the demon realm due to greediness, which makes it no different from the evil devils. Su Yao's heart turned cold. On top of her, everyone in the Xuanhuan faction including Xuanhuan also turned cold inside. Eliminating devils and killing demons. The faith that the members of the Xuanhuan faction had held for generations was a joke in others' eyes. However, they had stuck to and fought for their goal with self-righteousness for generations. Humans were tiny and ignorant. The Xuanhuan faction had explored and advanced in the darkness for generations and finally came to this stage where they could ascend as a whole. They were only one step away from becoming an immortal faction. However, everything fell apart at this moment. Seeing this scene, everyone was touched by an inexplicable feeling. 20 years ago, Xuanhuan King and Su Yu stopped the process of ascendance and blocked the mission. If this mission wasn't stopped, the ascendance would have failed anyway, and the whole faction would have been destroyed. 20 years later, Xuanhuan tried to stop the ascendance. If he succeeded, the faction would continue its pursuit in another cycle of 19 years. However, if Xuanhuan failed, the Xuanhuan faction would still be destroyed. It seemed like an invisible force in the world had been leading Xuanhuan to its destruction. The two earth-shaking artifacts were the ultimate products of the artifact making for cultivators, and the ascendance of a whole faction was probably the most glorious thing in human history. Even the players had looked toward and envious when they heard about this great faction at the beginning of the game. Many generations of people of the Xuanhuan faction poured all their energies and efforts in this dream, but no one had known that it would be the cause of the faction's destruction since the beginning. Perhaps this was the vague and ethereal fate and destiny. In the Legend of Sword and Fairy 4, the final enemy was neither Xuanhuan nor anyone else. The enemy was the unfathomable mandate of heaven. The heavenly fire was about to fall. When the heavenly fire falls, it will strike down the Xuanhuan faction. But what about the people at the foot of the mountain? Will they all die? Xuanhuan yelled out his question on the screen. I want to save them, Xuanhuan said. There were too many powerless moments in one's destiny. Perhaps just as Xuanhuan said, everything in life including birth, aging, sickness, and death has been prearranged by the heavens. We're humans. How can we fight with the heavens? Along the way, Xuanhuan had experienced many things and found that he could do nothing to stop Liu Menglai's departure or Han Lingshaw's imminent demise. Now he couldn't even save the lives of the people in Crescent Village. Perhaps you haven't seen enough suffering in the world and think that everyone can solve their problems with their own power. The godly dragon's words replayed by Xuanhuan's ears, and he suddenly understood that there were so many regrets and powerlessness in life. This was destiny. You can't work against the heaven's will, the ninth heaven mystic fairy said. Xuanhuan laughed in anger. No wonder people say that the heavenly Tao is indifferent to all, and all creatures are considered straw dogs. You are indeed merciless and cold and would kill without caring if it's fair. The ninth heaven mystic fairy's voice still sounded cold. The heavenly Tao is indifferent means that the gods and heavenly Tao regard everything fairly. However, you misunderstood its meaning by so much. It's shameful that the heavenly Tao acts in such a way. Xuanhuan laughed wildly as if he was a maniac. I, Xuanhuan, swear today with my life that since the heaven Tao rejected me, I'd rather become a devil. Everyone saw the ice and fire elemental murderous energy around Xuanhuan growing even darker and gloomier until they turned into a chilly and horrifying devilish energy. Thunders boomed and lightning bolts flashed in the sky as if they were venting endless fury. The lightning bolts danced like snakes in the sky, and the stars fell down, shaking the earth as if the heavenly Tao was eager to instantly kill this devil. Xuanhuan's determination and madness deeply shocked everyone. They saw him turning into a devil under the tremendous pressure of destiny. The stunning despair that Xuanhuan showed stirred and saddened everyone, creating the most tragic song. When Xuanhuan was stuck in the bottleneck of cultivation with the dual swords, he didn't give up. When he obtained some progress and mutated his meridians, he didn't give up. When he lost Wang Xiu's sword and suffered from being burned by flames day and night, he didn't give up. He had borne all the pain just for today. The maniac figure under the gloomy sky and the flashing lightning bolts was printed into everyone's mind as if he was the only person to do so. This was the mandate of heaven. Xuanhuan's roars which stated that he would one day kill his way to the godly realm, and his howls that contained endless fury hammered on everyone's heart with vicious force. As a newborn devil, Xuanhuan was naturally no match for the ninth heaven mystic fairy. What he got was endless imprisonment in the East Ocean whirlpool. 20 years of burning in fire was nothing compared with the terrifying fate that awaited him. No one made a sound. Everyone watching the scene was deadly silent and terrifyingly pale. The ninth heaven mystic fairy was about to leave when Yuntan yelled, "Wait! You haven't told me how to save those people at the foot of the mountain yet." Was it truly impossible to disobey the mandate of heaven? Could he make a small change? A tiny small change? You said that everything in the world is part of the heavenly Tao, then humans are part of the heavenly Tao too, right? Then, why can't humans decide our own destiny? Yuntan was ignorant of the worldly things due to his young age and inexperience. But he was more intelligent than ordinary people. Then, I control my destiny and not the heavens. What was the purpose of cultivation? What were cultivators? The elves and knights in the Nora continent didn't understand it. Even the cultivators and warriors on the continent of immortal relics only had vague answers to these questions. The Shu Mountain faction only cared about the humans in the world and didn't pursue for immortal Tao. Jingtan was the reincarnation of an immortal general and didn't care to ascend or become an immortal. Under the strike of the blazing heavenly fire, Xuanhuan fell from the sky like a burning sun. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be roasting by this sun as if it was the end of the world. At the foot of the mountain, people saw Yuntan pulling out the arrow and drawing the bow, and they felt like they had gone back to the distant ancient time and saw the figure who shot down 9 suns. Here, a group of mortals wanted to control their own destinies. Being born as immortals and gods with special gifts and talents wasn't something to be proud of. In contrast, these mortals, the dust in the 6 realms as called by the godly dragon, and the weak ants in Gamang's eyes, were admirable and touching since they dared to do the impossible. Everyone in the audience was also mortals and knew that many things were out of their control. At this moment, they began to understand the true meaning of being a cultivator. Cultivators were a group of people who tried to control their own destinies. Then, they watched as Yuntan drew the bow and shot the arrow toward the blazing heavenly fire and the Xuanhuan faction which were falling from the sky. At this moment, a mortal issued a brave challenge to destiny and the mandate of heaven. At this moment, everyone stood up from their seats subconsciously. Now, all the elves and knights felt their eyes turning moist as sudden understanding dawned on them. There are such people. They felt like a voice was yelling in their minds, and their hearts trembled. They had never felt so stunned and thrilled before. This spirit and this courage of challenging things beyond one's power formed the most epic tale in human history. Chapter 672. "What are you guys all doing?" falling from the high sky with blazing heavenly fire burning around it. The Xuanhuan faction looked like a small meteor, or a sun, falling from space. It was a catastrophe. If it landed, the surrounding area within a diameter of hundreds or even thousands of kilometers would be razed to the ground. The strong light dyed the entire sky into fiery red. Knowing that it was impossible, Xuanhuan still tried to lock horns with the great power of nature with human strength. Perhaps countless years ago, another great archer had the same feeling. Xuanhuan lifted the same bow that Hu Yi had used and drew it open. Everyone watched as a rainbow shot across the sky like a shooting star and pierced the sun-like Xuanhuan faction. As if it was struck by a horrifying force, the fire instantly exploded. An earth-shaking noise sounded from the high sky. The entire Xuanhuan faction with its mountain exploded under the force of Hu Yi's sun-shooting bow. Everything was shattered, and countless debris shot outward like a rain of shooting stars. At this moment, Xuanhuan depleted all his strength and fell down in the end. Seeing this, the players from the new shop and the old shops had tears in their eyes. Perhaps it wasn't sadness but of an indescribable emotion that touched their hearts. In the end, Xuanhuan succeeded. Even though it was insignificant. At least he had saved these mortals from being crushed to pieces by the iron hooves of destiny. The heavens are in motion ceaselessly. The enlightened exert themselves constantly. Was it truly impossible for tiny humans to become immortals or gods? Were they going to remain as existences similar to dust or ants in the eyes of the gods forever? With possession of such spirit and courage, there was nothing impossible in this world. Many people felt as if a chain was unlocked in their minds, and something had loosened inside their bodies. Meanwhile, in the Xuanhuan city shop, it was drizzling, and the puddles on the ground suddenly reflected images of two figures in black clothes and black cloaks. The two figures walked in the drizzle leisurely. Although they were talking, they didn't stir up any ripples in the puddles when they walked on them. The legends said that grandmasters left no footprints walking on snow, but leaving no trace on water was even rarer since it required extreme control and powerful movement techniques. I'm surprised to see such prosperity in this forgotten land. However, the array in this city is a bit out of date. They walked while chatting leisurely with each other. The layout of this city DSK reminds me a bit of my faction, but it has gone awry. It seems that they have declined generations after generations. The tall and thin man shook his head and said with a smile, "It seems that the people here should respectfully address us as Supreme Messenger, right? This place looks like the lower realm. I think they should address us with this title." Ha ha ha. His companion laughed. "Heavenly Academy. Good. It should be close. Although we've lost it long ago, since we have this opportunity, we should meet and help this branch of our faction." At this moment, they saw Saya passing by with a bag of spiritual melons in her hand. She murmured, "This Jessica. She always asks me to bring her melons." "Little girl, do you know how to get to Heavenly Academy?" At this moment, Saya saw two guys walking over to her. "Why are you asking?" Saya spoke with the spiritual state language but still had the awkward accent. "It's not time for the Academy entrance test yet. We're old acquaintances of the Heavenly Academy Master," one of them explained. "Oh." With sudden understanding, Saya pointed at the Origins Internet Club helpfully and said, "Academy Master Gu is in the Internet Cafe, you can find him there. Outside the door of Kanglan City Shop. Is that Murong Ziying? In this place?" The white-haired and white-robed Adolf walked over with a long magic staff and extended his neck, glancing into the door. "How can he stay in this small shop?" Dwarf Elder Sork Stonehammer looked at the shop doubtfully. "This place looks too low-end." Mr. Fang's shop was quite good in Kanglan City, but it still looked low-end in Dika's eyes. After all, she was born in an aristocratic family. A large group of people followed them. "What? He lives in this place?" "We came with great expectation and awe for his abilities, but I feel like we might leave in disappointment." Then, the group of people pushed open the door and walked in. With his magic staff in his hand, Adolf was the first to walk into the shop. The others followed him closely. At this moment, they saw a big group of people standing in one big circle while intently watching something on the big screen in the shop. Also, some of them such as Salah and other elves were rubbing their eyes with handkerchiefs as if sand grains had entered their eyes. They continued to rub their eyes non-stop. None of them noticed that another group of people entered the shop. How come these people are all like this? What's happening? Having just walked into the shop, the newcomers were puzzled by what they saw. Elder Sork of the dwarf clan seemed to see a familiar face since his small eyes suddenly lit up. He walked over and said, "Isn't that Elder Sewell of the elf clan?" Meanwhile, the two black-cloaked messengers from another continent also pushed open the door of the Xuanhuan city shop. They also saw a group of people standing before the big screen with tears in their eyes. What are they doing here? The tall and thin messenger coughed slightly and said in a friendly voice, "Can I ask if Academy Master Gu is here?" A white-haired old man instantly stood up with complicated emotions on his face. Many people turned to them. One of the newcomers had shoulder-length black hair, and the other was short and fat but had a mild and smooth presence. They stood there like two-tall mountains with magnificent presences. Obviously, they had extremely high cultivation strength, probably higher than anyone in the entire spiritual state. Xuanhuan hurried over and reached out his hand while asking curiously, "Friends, do I know you, friends?" Looking at Xuanhuan's weird handshaking gesture, the two exchanged a look and chuckled. However, before they could speak, they heard Xuanhuan letting out a long howl which was as high as the roar of an old dragon. Then, they felt Xuanhuan's presence rising continuously until it reached a limit. But instead of stopping at the limit, it seemed to have broken through a threshold and grew. Xuanhuan's cultivation strength had stopped at the 30th small realm of the 3rd level of the spiritual void realm, which was the 8th realm for cultivators, for many years. But now, the 31st, the 32nd, the 33rd. The 36th small realm, level 4 spiritual void realm, the 1st small realm of the 4th level of the spiritual void realm, the 2nd, the 3rd. The two newcomers' hands that just reached out froze in midair. Then, more long howls sounded in the shop, and the presences all started to grow. In the Kanglan city shop, Elf Elder Sewell turned her head. The mage Adolf and the dwarf Elder Sork were about to walk over when they saw Elder Sewell opening her small mouth wide. Ah! She let out a long howl. Suddenly, her cultivation strength suddenly rose from the 2nd tier of level 8. TL note, it seems like the levels in the new continent refers to the same thing as realms in the old continent. Then, they heard more howls in the shop. Ah, ooh, yeah. With the long howls, streaks of powerful presences shot up like explosive fireworks. Breakthrough! The two black-cloaked messengers in Xuanhuan city shop exchanged a look, and Adolf, Sork, and the others in Kanglan city shop looked at each other and almost shouted in shock. What are you guys all doing? Chapter 673. The online game about to be released is called World of Warcraft. In the Xuanhuan city shop, Half City shop, and Jua shop, most of the senior players with high cultivation strength had obtained breakthroughs after a long time of accumulation. The people who hadn't obtained breakthroughs had acquired some understandings and inspirations. The effect was more obvious on the old and experienced cultivators and warriors such as Xuanhuan, who had accumulated strength for a long time and experienced many regrets and powerlessness in life. In comparison, the young people obtained fewer inspirations. However, since the old shops had many players, even a small percentage of them breaking through right there caused a great upheaval. The long howl shocked the two nonplussed black-cloaked messages so much that they almost turned and ran. What kind of weirdos are these people? We've not come to this place for many years. How come things have changed so much in this place? How can people make breakthroughs like this? The newcomers in the Kanglan city shop obviously had the same feeling. What are you doing here? The two asked immediately. We are watching the live stream. Old man Xuanhuan was also puzzled. I was watching Mr. Fang's live stream and suddenly felt the knots in my heart completely unraveling when I saw the part where Yundan took the control of his destiny from the heaven and shot down Xuanhuan. Then, I just... What? Live stream? What do you mean by I control my destiny and not the heavens? The two people looked even more baffled. Do you want to try it? The Legend of Sword and Fairy 4. Xuanhuan said, let's try it. They walked toward the counter in doubt. In the Kanglan City shop, a group of people were watching the scenes on the big screen with curiosity. On the big screen, fire rained down while the Xuanhuan faction exploded into many chipped rocks and debris in the high sky. While burned by blazing heavenly fire, everything falling down the sky turned into ash before landing on the ground. Despite some damages, they were much less serious than what they could have been. I never recommended mystical realms that weren't made by the elf clan. Elder Sewell still looked emotional. But you must try this Legend of the Sword and Fairy 4. How can we try it? Adolf immediately asked. How do we pay? Dwarf Elder Sork asked loudly. Elder Sewell pointed at Mr. Fang who was live streaming with his virtual reality headset. Ask the shop owner to buy a membership card. Sir, I want to buy a membership card. As soon as Mr. Fang put down his virtual reality headset, he saw a large group of people swarming to him. Get in line. One by one. Everyone can have one. Get in line. Soon, such shouts sounded in the shop. I'm afraid that the new shop will soon need to be expanded again. Tang Yu, Xuanhuan, and other disciples of the Heavenly Academy mumbled, let's go, let's go, let's go to the bathroom. As mentioned before, in the Legend of the Sword and Fairy 4, Gumang wouldn't unleash his full force, and Yundan could still lose to Xuan Xiao, which meant that the only difficult battle was with the shadow of the godly dragon in Buzu Mountain. Obviously, it was less difficult to play than the Legend of Sword and Fairy 3 if the players didn't want a perfect ending. With the previous training of skills, the veteran players could complete the game without much hassle. With the strengthened items and spiritual treasures, the new players could also stumble to the end with success. A few days later, the first group of players cleared stage 1 after 100 years later in the Legend of Sword and Fairy 4, amid the crisp bird chirps and fragrant floral fragrance, the familiar and melodious notes of the flute song, Immortal Dream, sounded in Green Bird Peak. A white-haired Murong Zhang stood on the edge of the cliff, looking out into the drifting clouds in the valley. The gorgeous sword mortal had grown into a grand master. Liu Menglai walked over slowly, looking the same as she did 100 years ago. Life was like a big dream. Youth turned into white hair in one instant. The only constant thing was the heavenly Tao which permanently moved in cycles. 100 years later, the four people gathered again. On Green Bird Peak stood two tombs beside the sacrificed object. The Wangxiu sword. On one tombstone was engraved the words, Beloved Wife Hanling Shaw's tomb, while the other tombstone was blank, and a pair of butterflies danced around the sword. The two looked back and saw a figure pushing open the door to the small wooden house and walking out. He still looked like the youth he had been 100 years ago, but his bright eyes were no longer there. His eyes were tightly closed and couldn't open. He changed the lives and destinies for many people. In the end, he had to pay the price. Seeming to sense the presence of his old friends, a smile gradually appeared on his face. Despite the many troubles in the world, it was a moment of happiness that his best friends could still come together after so many years. For a moment, they seemed to return to the Nest Lake, Huainan King's tomb, Jaimo Town, and Boxian Town. Those were the best memories in their lives. Without them knowing, tears came to their eyes and wetted their faces. Messages appeared in the Legend of Sword and Fairy 4 group chat. Song Kingfing posted, screenshot, it's the end, screenshot, scattering flower petals for the ending. Jiangxi Oyu still had tears in her eyes. In the Kanglan City shop the group of elves had tissues in their hands. So touching. I never knew that such a stirring story exists in this mystical realm. Hiss. Why did Ling Shaw die like that? It seems that she died of old age, but I'm still sad. It seems like we can finally return to Silvermoon Forest in peace. Elder Sewell murmured. At this moment, Commander Elvin of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion asked leisurely, Sir, will you host new games from the East Continent in the future? New games? What new games? Elder Sewell and the other elves perked up their extremely pointy ears. Obviously, the melancholic elves needed something new to divert their attention and ease their sadness. New games? Many players who had cleared the game also looked over. Sir, will you host and run new games, or do you have sequels of Assassin's Creed or Resident Evil? The players in the old shops were also speculating. Song Kingfing said, what do you think the next game in the shop will be? Whatever it is. Sutanji rested her head on the computer desk in her zone and said, I'll buy it anyway. Sutanji's zone was completely different compared to before. After meticulous care. Her residence was now a luxurious mansion, and the large fields of spiritual vegetables and spiritual fruits were flourishing under the care of the semi-automatic machines that she had bought. She had several computers in her house and a small laptop for her to play and chat on QQ while lying on her bed. Beside her lay a jade flute, and the sheet music for Immortal Dream was still displayed on the computer screen. Obviously, she had been practicing this song a while ago. In the Yuan Yang City shop, Jiangxi Oyu sat among her peers from the Heavenly Academy. Bai stretched her back with force and said, I'm bored. I finished the new game. Jiangxi Oyu said in the group chat, I think the next game must be a sequel of an old game. I think it will be a brand new game. After all, the shop had released a sequel of Resident Evil, Brotherhood was a sequel of Assassin's Creed, and The Legend of Sword and Fairy 4 was also a sequel. Nalan Minksu said in the chat group, I think the next one won't be a sequel. It's more fun to speculate on the creator of the game, Blizzard, Ubisoft, or Soft Star. We can use the process of elimination and rule out Soft Star first. After all, The Legend of Sword and Fairy 4 has just ended. Meanwhile, the new shop's reputation had been growing, and it seemed like the task wasn't so difficult to complete after all. Therefore, Mr. Fang gave the players a clue and said, the new game will be an online game named World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft. The players in the new shop looked curious. And what is an online game? Chapter 674, Heated discussions about the new game. The mystical realm of Assassin's Creed is about assassins. Elena, who wore the hooded assassin's outfit, asked curiously, does it mean that the World of Warcraft is about? She glanced at the direction of Dusk Forest with a frightened look. Magical beasts. TL note. World of Warcraft was translated into World of Magical Beasts in Chinese. Is it a mystical realm for magical beasts to experience life? Elena exclaimed. Not likely. The elves were also puzzled. However, they knew that this shop, which had released an assassin-focused mystical realm and then the East Continent-style mystical realm, was unique and thus couldn't completely rule out this possibility. What nonsense are you talking about? Mr. Fang's face twitched. You'll know when the cinematic trailer is released. Obviously, the players in the old shops had also gotten the news. By now, Linian Academy of Jua City had established new standards for the disciples in the four houses. But still, Xuzixin and Shenqingqing, two of the first group of players in the shop, were about to graduate from the academy. Meanwhile, people like Nalan Minksu, Song Kingfing, and even Fatty Wang Tai had entered the Earth House and became senior students in the academy. Due to the booming sales of the official novel of Diablo 2, Shen Qingqing now had a part-time job as a writer and was quite famous. Time flies, right? Qingqing, Xuzixin said with a new communication jade in her hand. We'll soon graduate. Shen Qingqing froze when she casually glanced at her communication jade. What's it, Qingqing? The shop owner replied to my message about the new game. Shen Qingqing said in pleasant surprise. In addition, the shop owner plans to release new official novels and comics. Some games in the shop, such as the Legend of Sword and Fairy series, focused on the main plot of the story. However, other games had good stories which were overshadowed by other great features, and these games included Diablo 2 and Dungeon Fighter Online. Big news! Big news! In the big group chats such as the Legend of Sword and Fairy and Mr. Fang's group tour, King posted the news. The shop owner revealed that the next game is called World of Warcraft, a massively online game just like the Legend of Mir 2 and Dungeon Fighter Online. It's not a single-player game. According to the newest information, Dungeon Fighter Online might get an updated version. A massively online game named World of Warcraft. An updated version of Dungeon Fighter Online? Jiangxi Oyu yelled. How did you all know it? How come I know nothing about it? She was angry. Don't fight. What's this World of Warcraft about? The person making the comment was Zaichi, a veteran player and one of Song Kingfeng's classmates. Does it mean that the world is full of demons and wild beasts? In the post bar, many posts appeared on the forum, and some of them were titled, Hot Headline, the imminent new game is a massively online game, and, I'm buddies with Mr. Fang series, the detailed analysis of World of Warcraft with potential trailer leaking out before the official release. Mr. Fang looked puzzled. I only revealed the name, and you guys came up with a detailed analysis? With a trailer? Mr. Fang even clicked the link. When the video played, he saw a yellow mouse yelling, Pika Pika. Mr. Fang's face darkened and thought, damn, what a clickbait. Then, he deleted the post and banned the user who posted it. Meanwhile, a big event seemed to have happened in the neighboring Stan nation. The imprisoned assassins were rescued by a group of people who claimed to be from the Brotherhood. Similar things were happening in other areas frequently as well. Damn it, these damn people. Meanwhile, head priest Cesare of the Judgment Godly Palace in the Stan nation was enraged and had shattered everything that he could see. Ha 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 ha. Another group of morons clicked my link. In the half-city shop, a black cloud reached out two arms condensed from black mist and clapped while laughing. Is Pokemon interesting? Before he could finish, Ningbai, who was sitting at the computer across from him, yelled, smirk face emoji, you're banned. Who did it? According to the shop owner, an online game means that the players from different shops can enter the same big mystical realm. The players in the new shop were talking among themselves while sitting on couches. It's said that before the World of Warcraft is released, the shop will connect us with the players from other shops through the internet. Is this shop very famous in the East Continent? Salah asked curiously. I suppose it is, Elder Sewell said while thinking. Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed, and The Legend of Sword and Fairy are all huge projects. I think this shop must be a very big agent for games. It's no wonder that it doesn't take names of any workshops. It's said that the creator of World of Warcraft is the Blizzard Workshop. Is it better than the previous ones? The players who hadn't finished The Legend of Sword and Fairy 4 were still battling in the game. As the earliest group of players, the elves and knights had finished the game and thus had more free time on hand. Whenever they had time, these people would gather at the lounge area with a mug of cappuccino and talk about the new game. It's said that the shop will release the trailer of the new game tomorrow, Salah said in boredom. Why isn't it released today? I can't wait to watch it. It won't be released on the big screen until tomorrow at noon, Elder Sewell added in frustration. Can't it be released in the morning? Oh. Dwarf Elder Sork sat on a couch with a few other stocky dwarves. Eastern alchemy is miraculous. Oh, I should call it artifact-making skills. I look forward to trying this new mystical realm. I think I should recommend it to my people in the Black Iron Castle. Although the dwarves couldn't change their profession and become artifact masters, they could get inspired and learn a few things from this new field of knowledge. I've sent a message back home, Elder Sork. Elder Sewell sipped her cappuccino and said mildly, please don't tell too many people about it. Otherwise, we'll have no seats for ourselves. Sorry, guys. Old Mage Adolf walked up from behind them and said, I think our magic communication system has spread the news all over the world. At least, many mages have gotten the news. You can see the effects," he said as he pointed at the big group of new customers who came to the shop after watching Mr. Fang's live stream of artifact making. "I think tomorrow, the customers in this shop will double. Get prepared, old friends." Chapter 675, The Vastest Game World. There was more than one big screen to watch live streams in the old shops. Several neighboring sections shared one lounge area and one big live streaming screen. In the new shop, Mr. Fang expanded the space to accommodate 20,000 computers in one go. Of course, this consumed a lot of system energy. Just like the space folding technology used in the old shops, the shop was divided into 10 sections. Since most of the sections were empty, Mr. Fang didn't open all of them to the public. Right now, only about 2,000 computers were for public use in the new shop. The shop barely had a full house at the busiest hours. Meanwhile, in the Yuanyang City shop should we report this to our superiors? How come the mystical realms in this forgotten continent look more powerful than ours? The two black-cloaked, dignified-looking messengers came from the distant, the legendary place where ancient factions had ascended to. "Let's check out World of Warcraft first," the fat messenger said. "If it's as good as the others, we should inform our faction by passing back a message." Noon of the next day. All the players in the new shop and the old shops, regardless if they had been playing games or waiting to get online, were all gathering at the lounge areas. In the new shop at Kanglan City, someone even paid to have the spiritual spell visual projection on the White Pigeon Square broadcast the trailer. "It's almost time." Dwarf Elder Sork glanced at the time and said, "Only 10 seconds left." At this moment, many people stood before the big screens in the new shop. 10, 9, 8. The excellence of Assassin's Creed and the legend of Sword and Fairy obviously gave the veteran players in the new shop great confidence in the new game. They all counted down with great anticipation. 3, 2, 1. It begins. It is beginning. Look. Suddenly, sounds came, and images appeared on the big screens. It was an old map that looked old and had a yellow tone. There were 2 huge continents on the map. In the center was a whirlpool that almost occupied the whole sea area. 4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together and stood united against the might of the Burning Legion. A voice introduced the background, and it felt like the curtain before a grand world was slowly lifted. Though Azeroth was saved, the tenuous pact between the Horde and the Alliance has all but evaporated. The drums of war thunder once again. The initial stage of World of Warcraft didn't begin from the war with the Burning Legion. Despite the previous Great War, the game began with the conflicts between the Alliance and the Horde. It was going to start with something simple and slowly lead up to the more important issues. When the huge map vanished, a dwarf's face appeared on the top of the snow mountain. "Oh, how come this guy's nose is so big?" Obviously, the players in the old shops had never seen such people before. The camera zoomed out and showed a dwarf with bulging muscles and a long brown beard. Dressed in leather armor, he was holding a firearm that was even taller than himself. "A dwarf," Elder Sork said loudly. "Oh, I'm sure that he's one of us. He looks shorter than us but is very strong." In the snowstorm, a roaring brown bear walked forward with the dwarf one step at a time. The audience could still see a huge fortress in the distant mountains. "Is this mystical realm custom made for dwarves?" Elder Sork laughed. "There were dwarves in it. I must try this mystical realm." In the next scene, a night elf who had grayish-blue skin and was wearing exquisite light armor looked around in a forest and then darted off nimbly as if she had sensed that a large group of people was looking at her. "Is she an elf?" Elf girl Sala asked curiously. "How come her skin is grayish-blue, and this elf's ears are much longer and very pointy?" In the back of the audience, Elena studied the ears of the elves around her and found that none of them had ears as long or as pointy. "How come there is an elf like her?" The night elf ran nimbly in the forest and then lunged forward, turning into a tiger. "Oh, Did this elf transform from a tiger? The elves watched the scene with great curiosity. On a patch of withering land, a decayed, zombie-like foot stepped on this land, seeming to have left flames on the ground. Then, the land with some remnant green plants decayed and turned into a dark deathly grey. Looking up, the audience saw a face that looked like a skull, and the infernal behind this figure was blazing with green flames and looked like a small mountain, letting out earth-shaking roars. What's this thing? The audience obviously had never seen the undead race. Yeah, look. On the screen, an armored creature with a bull head and a human body spread out its body slowly. In the distance, the sun rose into the sky. Looking down from the cliff, they saw a magnificent view of a land dyed in purple by the morning sunlight. The winding rivers and mountains on the land formed a breathtaking view. This looks like. This is the orc. Ha ha ha. This orc is ugly even for the orc race. Hey. This is a mage. The sharp-eyed Adolf saw a human mage on the screen. With blazing flames in his hands, he was battling with a huge infernal. Ice and frost gathered in the mage's hands, and snowflakes flew in the howling wind. The mystical realm has all kinds of races, but this trailer only showed that each race could find their counterparts in the mystical realm. But what is special and unique about this mystical realm compared to others? Was its only advantage over other mystical realms the many races from which they could choose? Still, many people felt puzzled. At this moment, come and take a look. There's an introduction on the game's official website. Soon, people found that an official website of the game had appeared in the shop, and they clicked on it immediately. World of Warcraft is a nearly complete virtual world in which you can do almost anything you can do in the real world, including touring the continents, exploring the unknown places, and living as one of the races in this world. As everyone knew, in the Legend of Sword and Fairy or other games, even though the players could travel 1,000 kilometers in one instant with the sword control technique, they still couldn't travel around the whole Earth. The games had restrictions in this area. It was the same with Dungeon Fighter Online. However, in the World of Warcraft, if the players were patient, they could travel all over the planet. On the map, there were 2 huge continents on this planet. In other words, this mystical realm was vaster than everyone could have imagined. The area that the game provided for the players to explore was as big as a real planet, a small one at least. In this game world, there lived some existences far higher than humans. Meanwhile, the official website announced that the maximum game time for each day was extended by 2 hours, and the players could borrow game time from the next day if they found that 10 hours were not enough for one day. Of course, this policy was only used for special occasions and couldn't be used every day. Meanwhile, the business hours of the shop were going to be modified. The operation hours were getting longer. The information provided by the shop only showed the players an unprecedented game, mystical realm, and different races. As for what they could gain from the game and other unknown stuff, the players must find out themselves. Chapter 676. Here comes a dog-headed man. It was obvious that World of Warcraft was much more massive than any of the previous games. Its scale and magnitude surpassed all the past games. Right now, the players in the new shop were not worried about the quality of the mystical realm, but whether this huge world frame could sustain itself or not. In other words, they wondered which superpower in the East continent was running this mystical realm. As for other aspects, if this force could produce such a huge mystical realm, its overall abilities would be at least as great as the major workshops such as the Dylan Workshop. There was no need to worry about the quality. At this moment, the people who had just finished watching the broadcast on White Pigeon Square in Shizkanglan City and the players in the new shops all looked very curious. Blizzard Entertainment. The players in the new shop knew nothing about this name. They stared at the logo and wondered, what workshop is this Blizzard Entertainment? Is it really so powerful? Meanwhile, The players in the old shops were amazed. Hiss. Each game created by this senior Blizzard is a high-end product. They knew Blizzard was the creator of masterpieces such as Diablo 2 and StarCraft. They had been wondering what Blizzard was doing recently since nothing came out of this brand for a while, and they didn't expect it to suddenly release such a huge game. Young Master Song, we must buy World of Warcraft. Lin Xuanhuan browsed the information on the official website and exclaimed repeatedly, "It's not a problem of buying it or not." Song Kingfing looked at them in disdain and said, "It seems that there are two opposing sides in World of Warcraft. If we choose different sides, according to the information on the website, we will even have a hard time talking in the game. Right now, we must consider which side we should join." In Dungeon Fighter Online, the players usually fought in the dungeons and the dojos, which meant that the conflicts among players were not as fierce as those in The Legend of Mir 2. It was overall peaceful. The players could play together even if they were from different guilds. However, in World of Warcraft, the Alliance and the Horde spoke different languages since these two sides were naturally hostile to each other. If they chose the wrong side, they couldn't even form a team to do quests together. Should we consult our class president? Nalan Minksu had been the class president of Class U ever since they were in the Huang house. Let's ask Instructor Mu if she wants to play the game or not. If she does, we must join the same side. At this moment, in Mr. Fang's group tour group chat, Black Demon of Half City posted a question with the title as Black Demon Guild President, at Speaker of the Royal Clan Guild. Which side are you guys planning to enter? How about we enter opposite sides? Tang Yuan, the Yuanhing Pavilion Master, immediately chimed in. Are you ready to fight again? At this moment, Nalan Minksu was browsing the information about the two opposing sides, classes, and races on the official website. In the new shop in Kanglan City, the elves were talking animatedly among themselves while browsing the official website. Elder, what race do we choose? We'll certainly choose to be elves. Elder Suul said without hesitation, obviously very proud to be an elf. Then, she glanced at the young elves in disdain and thought, are you planning to choose other races? But, Elf Girl Sala pointed at the information on the official website and said, the leader of the Forsaken is also an elf. Besides, another elf said, Elder, this race, Blood Elf, isn't open yet, but they look quite like us. The Night Elf has dark skin and doesn't look good. I think we should join the Forsaken and fight with this elf leader to get familiar with this new mystical realm. Then, we can enter the advanced elf race, Blood Elf. No. Elder Suul shook her head and said, the Night Elves loves nature, which fits the values of our elf clan. We shouldn't focus on the appearances, my children. There's nothing wrong with dark skin. I think it looks good, Mr. Fang chimed in while he walked past them. Humphrey, humans' aesthetics. It doesn't look good at all. They glanced at Mr. Fang in disdain. Ignoring him, they continued their discussion. Obviously, the elves had a heated discussion about this topic. The people on the Nora continent were used to the humanoid races living in this world. Examples of these humanoid races were the various clans who lived in the Orc Mountains, which were far from the Morning Light Empire. It must be noted that they were not green-skinned orcs in World of Warcraft. They looked more like the beast people who had bull and wolf heads, could walk upright, and speak human languages. That was why the players in the new shop thought that the Tauren in the trailer was an orc. The orc was a special race. It was said that their gods had gifted wild beasts with intelligence and the ability to speak human languages, allowing them to evolve from being wild beasts that drank blood and ate raw flesh. After generations of evolvement, they had obtained their current appearances. On this extremely vast continent, they had their own kingdoms and their unique civilizations. However, it was a pity that there wasn't a beast person in the shop yet. Mistake. It's a big mistake. Mr. Fang's head hurt when he thought of something. When he first came to the continent, he had seen many humanoid creatures with bull heads and tiger heads. But after he came to this city, he hadn't seen any such creatures. Sir. Assassin Harrison saw the painful look on Mr. Fang's face, and he asked, "What's wrong?" Mr. Fang raised his head and said in frustration, "Do you know why we don't see any orcs in this nation?" "Orcs?" Harrison asked curiously. "Why did you ask this question?" "The reason is simple. This nation is far from the orc kingdoms. It's natural that we rarely see any of them here." "What should I do?" Would he have to go and kidnap some orcs from another nation? Meanwhile, outside the gate of the Kanglan city My goodness, this is indeed a beautiful place. Thanks for tuning in to the tour in Human Nations hosted by Mr. Dirk. Now, you're looking at the prosperous Kanglan city of the famous Human Nation, Morning Light Empire. An orc with a head similar to that of a Shiba Inu stood before the city gate, wearing light armor and a bright red scarf. He spread out his arms and exclaimed, "This is indeed a bustling human nation." Beside him was a stout and chubby orc with a black bull head. He was wearing leather armor, and he had a simple stone magic wand. This wand was stuck into the ground, and it supported a top-quality magic crystal. This crystal seemed to be able to capture all the visuals around it, working like a spiritual spell visual projection. Chapter 677, The Undead Rogue in Death Knell. At this moment, besides elves, dwarves were also considering which race they should choose, dwarves or gnomes, and which class they should choose. Meanwhile, a new group of assassins came to the shop. They were the assassins rescued by the newly established Brotherhood from Stan Nation and other neighboring nations. Before the release of the new mystical realm, you guys can try Assassin's Creed. Harrison, Elena, and other senior members of the Brotherhood introduced them to Assassin's Creed. The new official website had introductions of various races, classes, and race leaders. In the days before World of Warcraft was released, many players were talking about this. Linean Academy, the main road beside the martial arts field. At this moment, some disciples were taking a break on a slope beside the main road after the combat technique class. Our class president plans to choose the Horde. Zai-Chi, a veteran player and Song Qingfeng's classmate, looked at his communication jade in surprise. "No, I don't see any race I like in the Horde. Undead is a new race that I never played before. I want to try it," Nalan Minksu said in the group chat. They had only seen necromancers in Diablo 2. And the only impression of undead that the players in the old shops got was that they were all skeletons. However, Nalan Minksu found that the Forsaken race was very special and wanted to try it. "I heard that the Royal Clan Guild has chosen the human race, right?" Nalan Minksu said. "Yeah." They talked about it for a long time before making the decision. Shengjing Academy also chose the Alliance. Okay, we must stick together. Let's join the Horde," Song Qingfeng said in the group chat. "I'll play a Tauren since I've never played such a character before. Commander, what should we choose?" A knight of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion asked. "Without saying, we must choose the human race and be paladins." Commander Elven said proudly, "This name sounds lofty with the word saint in it. I'm sure it's the most powerful class." TL note: Paladin is called Saint Knight in Chinese. "Excellent decision, Commander." The knight yelled, "I also think that knights with the word saint in the title are super powerful." In his mind, the scenario where he battled against many opponents on his own appeared. "Do you know why I came to this city?" At this moment, a dog-headed man walked into the shop. With his grey hair and mane meticulously combed, he wore a set of unique silver armor. The moment he entered the shop, his eyes widened. While looking around, he said in shock, "I'm surprised. Can you believe that this shop looks more high-end than the Lava Workshop and Dylan Workshop? Before I came, I asked about it and heard that this is a representative shop for the East Continent. I heard that it's going to release a new massive mystical realm that has something to do with us orcs. So, we are coming here to check it out." With that said, he walked deeper into the shop with the bull-headed man. Isn't that Mr. Dirk?" Helen of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion was talking about the classes in the lounge area, and she suddenly turned her head. Mr. Dirk was a famous rogue of the Orc clan since he liked to record his travels with spiritual spell visual projection whenever he went to a new place. Of course, This was only his hobby since. No wonder Mr. Dirk hasn't done any spiritual spell visual projection for the major workshops lately. Helen said in a huff, it's because he came here. In the distant Orc Kingdom, some people could afford the projection crystals which could receive spiritual spell visual projections. Many people like to watch the spiritual spell visual projections from the nearby Alchemist Union branches. Obviously, many people were watching this scene right now. While Helen glared at him in frustration, this beast man went directly toward the counter. Mr. Fang was sipping his cappuccino when he heard someone knocking on the counter. Then, he saw the head of a Shiba Inu, and he asked, "Where did this dog poo?" Helen almost stumbled and dropped to the ground. She almost walked up and told Mr. Fang that this man was an orc-headed man. Mr. Fang quickly reacted and added 2 more words after dog, calling this guest a dog-headed man. 2 magic crystals per hour. The activation prices for the games are on the small blackboard. While his face twitched, he thought, how come orcs look like this? Then, he blinked and discovered that there was a bull beside the dog. However, with their appearances, Fang Chi finally completed his task. New task, Crosshair Masterpiece, World of Warcraft, completed. Task target, 1. The reputation of the new show reaches 100,000 people, completed. 2. Players include people from other races such as elves, orcs, and dwarves, completed. Task privilege, receive the original cinematic trailer, the right to design your own trailer, and the right to host small-scale events. Task reward, upgrade and combine the TV series and movie Cultivation Room and the game Cultivation Room. 10-day access to the new Cultivation Room. Fang Chi glanced at the system version of World of Warcraft. That was the reward. The system version of World of Warcraft costs 15 magic crystals or crystals for 1,350 minutes, and 30 magic crystals or crystals could buy 2,700 minutes, so on and so forth. New task, Crosshair Masterpiece. Following task 1, new chapter, Burning Crusade. It can only be released after basic requirements are met. Task target, the new shop's degree of reputation reaches 500,000 people. The degree of reputation of World of Warcraft reaches 300,000. After the task is completed, the system will upgrade automatically. Then, the host can actively seek and meet the requirements for the update of other games. After the upgrade, the shop can establish regional branch shops. The host can send employees to manage these branch shops. Task reward, the Ring of the Gaming King, special item. When being worn, plus 5% synchronization with all game characters, plus 20% cultivation strength and skills gains in the cultivation room, plus 10% compatibility with the game characters, and minus 10% consumption of complete synchronization. With higher compatibility with the game characters, the host will get used to the characters faster. Mr. Fang froze. We have such things? Obviously, this was a must-do task. Although Mr. Fang now had the right to release World of Warcraft, he decided to release it tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, the new shop had begun recruiting employees. He would need more than 1 employee. Since the business hours of the shop were increasing, 2 shifts were required even though 3 shifts weren't necessary at the moment. For the management of the shop, Mr. Fang pulled some people from the old shops. He decided to move Li Xina to here from Yuanyang City shop first. Since Xiaoyu was coming to the new shop soon, he decided to let Li Lanyu come with her as well. Meanwhile, some people had gotten the news from Mr. Fang. Tomorrow, World of Warcraft will be released tomorrow? My goodness, we haven't decided which side to join yet. The elves exclaimed. Mr. Fang's face darkened. How many days have you been talking about it? On the next day, the number of players in the shop were obviously larger than usual, with dwarves, elves, mages, large groups of mercenaries, and new assassins all coming into the shop. In fact, there were also many new players who had come to the shop from other cities after they got the news. Mr. Dirk of the Orc clan was one of them. My goodness. Mr. Dirk came to the shop at 8 a.m. sharp and found that the entrance was crammed with people. So many people. The elves had come very early and waited by the door, looking as if they were about to break into the shop. "What's wrong?" One elf checked the time. "It's only 5 minutes to 8. It's still silent inside, sir." "Get up. What are you yelling about?" A figure hurried down the stairs inside the shop, looking groggy. Obviously, he had just gotten up from bed. Lazy shop owner. Upon entering the shop, elf girl Sala gave Mr. Fang a dirty look. Before she could finish, many people behind her swarmed up to the empty seats. "Oh, quickly take seats!" Sala exclaimed and dashed to a nearby seat and plunked down as swiftly as a bunny. Then, she gave Mr. Fang a disapproving look and said, "You get up at 8 o'clock each morning. How lazy you are. You can sleep to death if you want." It must be noted that these elves usually cultivated during the night and came out when the sky barely got bright again. In Sylvan Forest, early morning was the perfect time for everything. Even the fruits tasted the best in the early morning. They were not like the scummy shop owner who slept until 8 a.m. when the sun was high up in the sky. The elves had had heated discussions over the past couple of days about which side to join. Finally, some elves decided to join the night elf race while others joined the Forsaken race led by Sylvanas. With a free nature, the elves wanted to try different things to make better decisions. Sala saw Mr. Fang sitting down one seat away from her. "Don't you need to keep an eye on the shop?" Mr. Fang pointed in the direction of the counter where two girls suddenly appeared. "I moved 2 employees over from the old shops so that you can play the game." Elf girl Sala looked at him in disdain. Sitting between them, Helen glanced at Mr. Fang's screen and asked, "Sir, are you going to play as well?" "Why not?" Mr. Fang pulled his computer chair closer to the desk and double-clicked on the logo on the desktop. While the game was loading, he picked up a bottle of Sprite and took a swig. "Sir, what class are you choosing?" With great familiarity, Mr. Fang chose the undead race and the rogue class, and he created the ID, Midnight Pig Butcher. Then, he entered the game and finished the process in one breath. At this moment, Mr. Fang appeared at the spawn spot, Death Knell, which was located on Azeroth. The elves sitting nearby were still deliberating over which face looked better. In the system version, the players could do some adjustments to their faces, and the undead players could even adjust the degree of decay. Some players even complained that the Forsaken had withered faces, sounding like they weren't here for the gameplay in World of Warcraft. Helen glanced at Mr. Fang and found that he appeared in the game just as a skeleton. Chapter 678. You're entrusted with the glorious task of saving humans. Hey, what classes did you guys choose? In the Xuanhuan city shop, many disciples of Heavenly Academy had chosen to join the Alliance. Mage Xuanhuan, the genius of the Xun family, said, "Did you have to ask?" "I plan to play as a human warrior." "What about you, Xuanhuan?" Bei and Mu King, Jiang Xuanyu's good friends in the Heavenly Academy, had made their decisions. Jiang Xuanyu looked at their screens and then at the screen of the big white deer. "Little Bell, what did you choose?" "I saw them all choosing the Orc or Tauren, so I followed suit and chose Tauren too." The big white deer complained in its baby voice, "There are only bull-headed people but no deer-headed people." The demon clan obviously all chose the Horde. Meanwhile, Elder Sue is live streaming again. Obviously, some players came too late and couldn't find a seat. For example, the disciples traveling from the distant 3 St. Gates. They had no choice but to watch the live stream first to get a glimpse of the game. When the players chose characters in World of Warcraft, they could only choose the facial styles and make some minor adjustments. Of course, humans and night elves obviously had 2 different aesthetic styles. Sudanji, who was live streaming, looked torn. "Can you guys help me make the choice? Which do you think looks better?" "Let's get out of here." Trash Elder Sue, some players have leveled up several times now, and you are still choosing your character. Idle streamer. "Can't you choose the gnome?" Sudanji replied, "Why? You haters. I won't ask you again." Meanwhile, in the new shop in Kanglan City. The dog-headed man looked more professional. "Welcome to the show hosted by Mr. Dirk. It's said that this is a mystical realm consisting of 2 continents. I wonder if we'll encounter friends from other continents in this mystical realm." This orc placed a stand supporting the magic crystal beside him and said, "I haven't learned all the functions of the high-end magic item in this shop yet, but you can see on the screen that I've chosen a bull-headed orc. I think this is an orc." Hiss. "I wonder why the orc race in this mystical realm doesn't include our kind. It's strange." "Oh, no. How come the green-skinned creatures are orcs? Which clan do they come from? I don't remember any orcs in our clan looking like this, but I think we should put more focus on their talents. It seems that each race has its own unique talents. Now, let's first see." Obviously, there were many people watching this spiritual spell visual projection. They were mostly fans of cultivation mystical realms and would have discussions through the methods such as magic letters or spiritual spell visual projections. Of course, they usually used magic letters which were more affordable. Beside a windowsill covered by violet stock flowers, a unique quill drip pen was writing neat words on a pure white letter paper by itself as if it was alive. After the written conversation was the signature of the writer. Of course, it was not the true name of the writer. What am I seeing? I'm watching Mr. Dirk enter an unknown mystical realm. From Minor Mage Andre. It's World of Warcraft, which is said to be a product of the Blizzard Workshop in the East Continent. It's not an unknown mystical realm, friend. From Sky Ocean Night Legion. I heard that this mystical realm consists of 2 huge continents and is more massive than we can imagine, but I wonder if they are just bluffing. From Wolf-Headed Man. We can't rule out this possibility. From Platinum Mage. Each race in World of Warcraft had its own unique talents which could change the battle style of different classes in some degree. For example, the shadow meld of night elves could be used instantly and enable the night elf to slip into the shadow, thus decreasing the chance of being detected by the enemies. It could last until the player cancelled it or upon moving. Shadow meld could be combined with the stealth skill of night elf rogues or druids. Finally, with the suggestions from the viewers, Sutanji, who wanted to play the mage class, chose to be a human mage and entered the game. Despite their hesitation at the character creation interface and wasting time there, most players including elves, dwarves, and orcs had all entered the game by now. The noble humans of Stormwind are a proud, tenacious race. Right now, Sutanji was watching the cinematics at the beginning of the game for the human race. Before her was a solid fortress built with huge boulders, while the huge stone statues of different races such as humans, dwarves, and elves were revealed to the players. The passionate voice narrated the past of Stormwind City. The whole fortress slowly displayed itself before the human players. Though the recent invasion of the demonic Burning Legion decimated their sister kingdom of Lordaeron, the defenders of Stormwind stand vigilant against any who would threaten the sanctity of their lands. Stormwind City is one of the last bastions of human power in the world. The narrative voice grew more passionate with the rise of the music. Backed by their stalwart allies, the armies of Stormwind have been called away to once again fight the savage horde on distant battlefields. With the armies gone, the defense of Stormwind now falls to its proud citizens. The scene slowly turned from the Stormwind City to a beautiful human female mage in North Shirabi. She had just created her character. You must defend the kingdom against the foul mongrels that encroach upon it and hunt down the subversive traitors who seek to destroy it from within. Now is the time for heroes. Now humanity's greatest chapter can be told. Oh, isn't it me? Sutanji suddenly felt like someone was patting her on the shoulder, entrusting her with the responsibility of humanity's future. Am I so powerful? She was instantly worked up. Is it going to be similar to the Legend of Sword and Fairy later on, where I can say that I control my own destiny, not the heavens? She got excited by the prospect of her great achievements on this continent. At this moment, the elves were also watching the cinematics after creating night elf characters or the Forsaken characters. While many players had entered the game, Some dwarves and orcs had just begun watching the cinematics. Chapter 679. Who is the greatest race? Bound to the iron will of the tyrant Lich King. Elf girl Salah had chosen the Forsaken, led by Sylvanas. Before her was a huge, gloomy, and decayed forest. The vast undead armies of the Scourge seek to eradicate all life on Azeroth. Led by the Banshee Sylvanas Windrunner, a group of renegades broke away from the Scourge, and freed themselves of the Lich King's domination. Known by some as the Forsaken, this group fights a constant battle not only to retain their freedom from the Scourge, but also to slaughter those who would hunt them as monsters. I think this race is awesome. Some elves murmured to themselves while watching the cinematics. For 10,000 years, the immortal Night Elves cultivated a druidic society within the shadowed recesses of Ashenvale Forest. Yet recently, the catastrophic invasion of the Burning Legion shattered the tranquility of their ancient civilization. Led by the Archdruid Malfurion Stormridge and the priestess Tiran Whisperwind, the mighty Night Elves rose to challenge the demonic onslaught. Though victorious, the Night Elves were forced to sacrifice their cherished immortality and watch their beloved forests burn. As one of the few left in the world, it is your sworn duty to defend Darnassus and the wild children of nature against the Legion's encroaching corruption. Elder Suil and many other elves had chosen the Night Elf race, and they thought, my goodness, the Night Elves are indeed a great race. We made the right decision of choosing it. Salah must be regretting her choice now. Meanwhile, the orcs were watching the opening cinematics of the game through the spiritual spell visual projection. Long ago, the Orcish horde was corrupted by the Burning Legion and lured to the world of Azeroth. For generations, the orcs made war upon the human kingdoms of Stormwind and Lordaeron. Though the horde was ultimately defeated, a visionary young warkiff named Thrall rose to lead his people in their darkest hour. Under Thrall's rule, the orcs freed themselves from the chains of demonic corruption and embraced their shamanistic heritage. Based in the warrior city of Orgrimmar, they stand ready to destroy all who would challenge their supremacy. Looking at the huge orc city in Durota Valley, a player yelled, my goodness, I made the right choice. This is a huge mystical realm only a big workshop can produce. This orc looks weird, but it's compatible to the beliefs of our orc clan. Now, we need to defend Lordaeron. Mr. Dirk stuck out his tongue. No, defend Orgrimmar. This name is so difficult to remember. What Orgrimmar? Lordaeron. The alchemists of the East Continent always like these weird names. That's embarrassing. Orcs, we have a traitor among us. The audience from all over the world enthusiastically wrote down their comments on the magic letters. Meanwhile, Mr. Dirk stretched his body in the game. You've finally grown up, Mr. Dirk. Village Chief Kartuk walked up and sized up the new orc. You can join the battle in the name of the Horde and fight for the glory of the Warkiff. Of course, I'll kick out all the enemies who dare to challenge us orcs. Mr. Dirk yelled without thinking and then froze. This mystical realm is intriguing. Then, he glanced around and said, so many people. Guys, do you see them? Are they people from the East Continent? I'll go and greet them. Of course, we might speak different languages. At this moment, there were many orc players in the Valley of Trials, and it was the same in the Deathknell. The undead had high resistance against fear, sleep, and charms. When they concentrated, they were immune to most of these spells. This was their natural gift, regardless if they were in melee combat or ranged combat. It was deadly if the players were controlled by these spells. This gift enabled the undead to be competent for most classes. In the Geocity shop, Nalan Minksu controlled her little undead warrior to walk around in Deathknell. How come there are so many people here? Her companion Lan Yan had just come out of the graveyard. While looking around at the bustling mages, warriors, and undead rogues, she said, I feel like there are more people than in Dungeon Fighter Online. Everyone says that the undead are ugly, but there are so many people playing this race. They were dazed by the scene. After walking out of the town, they saw tall evergreen trees and shrubs everywhere. In the dense iris-full glades where no sunshine could penetrate inside, There were many zombies and skeletons as if it was a ghost town. The players were amazed that they were a part of them. It seems like we are a part of them, but I don't like the scenery here. Suddenly, they saw two undead with pointy ears passing by. The ears looked like those of an elf, but they were less pointy and shorter than those of night elves. Ugh, these people. While rubbing her eyes, Lan Yan thought that she had seen it wrong. Immediately, she walked up and asked, "Excuse me, can we choose the elf race in the undead race?" "How did you choose the race?" Salah was nonplussed. "We're born as elves. We didn't choose to be elves. After all, it was a feature that they were born with." "Wait a second. Are you from the elf clan that the shop owner once mentioned?" Nalan Minksu froze. "My goodness. What elf? We have elves here." Immediately, many players from the old shops swarmed up. "Are you people from the East Continent?" Elf girl Salah was amazed that she encountered people from a place hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. "Do you want to join us and do quests together?" Nalan Minksu sent an invitation. "Can I?" "Of course. Join the group." "Join the group." Saya quickly joined the group and went to kill mobs cheerfully. Most elves had chosen warriors and mages. After spawning, they would watch some introductions about the undead, and they then got the quest to eliminate the brainless zombies outside Deathknell. Maybe they were once your peers or brothers, but they had fallen and are now slaves of the Lich King. Obviously, this was a process for the players to learn the history of the Forsaken. At this moment, Elder Sewell put down her virtual reality headset and glanced over. "How are you doing, little Salah? Do you want to join the Night Elves in the Alliance?" "No way." Salah was busy doing quests with her new teammates. "This Forsaken race is very powerful." "How can it be?" Elder Sewell said curiously. "I watched the cinematics. These savage members of the Horde were defeated in the previous war." No, we, the Forsaken, were defeated because we were fighting both the Burning Legion and the slaves of the Lich King at the same time. Salah refuted with the little knowledge that she just learned about the history of the Forsaken. "Impossible. We, the Night Elves, defeated the Burning Legion before." "Oh, we also have to deal with something called the Scourge Army." Salah was still confused with all these legions and armies which sounded quite powerful. "They are people who escaped from the evil Lich King. They were once defeated but will rally in the future. This is a great race with a strong will." Hiss. "What's going on?" Elder Sewell was baffled as she thought, "Aren't we, the Night Elves, the greatest race?" After all, it was what the opening cinematic had said. Chapter 680. A totally different life. In the dark and gloomy Tyrusful glades, the dilapidated town and the decaying houses littered this cursed land. All kinds of undead creatures bustled in this forest. It was a brand new feeling to wander around the huge Azeroth continent as an undead. Beware the living. In Deathknell, the players heard such warnings constantly. For the living creatures, the undead were absolutely freaks and monsters. They themselves are monsters. Elf girl Salah said while fighting the mobs in the forest. "While dealing with these monsters, we have to be wary of all people. We're all fighting the evil Burning Legion, right? Why can't they stop bothering us? Those people just hate us because of our looks." Salah thought resentfully while searching for useful equipment with Nalan Minksu and others in Deathknell. "Excuse me, are you really an elf?" Lan Yan had been staring at the elves with great curiosity. In the game, the Horde used one language while the Alliance used another, which meant that communication wasn't a problem for them. After all, both the spiritual state language and Nora continent language became the languages of the Horde and Alliance in the game. Since the characters in the game had memories of their respective languages, the players could understand each other. Of course. Soon, they each collected a bag of equipment and returned cheerfully. Even the trash equipment could be used to trade for some items from the undead guards. Of course, experience points were the most valuable thing. "Miss Salah, you really don't want to join our human army of the Alliance?" The members of the Golden Griffin Night Legion sitting nearby obviously had the same grand feeling of being endowed with the task of saving the world as Su Tanji did. "Of course, They were now playing the characters who were recruited to defend the homeland and the Alliance. Right now, Stormwind City was facing a great threat. With their army stationed overseas, their home lacked manpower, which was why the newly recruited players must defeat the enemies from the outside and remove the internal conflicts, shouldering a portion of the responsibilities. Obviously, it was a lofty cause to contribute to the kingdom's prosperity and safety. I'm proud for making the wise decision to become a human paladin. Haha. This identity gave these knights a sense of achievement and responsibility, and the Golden Griffin Knights laughed. After all, their responsibility in the real world was defending the city. With the entire city prosperous and peaceful, they were now quite idle. A Golden Griffin Knight had platinum-colored lights flashing on his hands. The warm holy light can swiftly heal any injuries. Isn't it awesome? Among all the spells, the holy light spells had the fastest healing speed. There were healing spells in other games, but their healing speeds were relatively slower. I think our opponents will feel hopeless when we're in real battles. Another Golden Griffin Knight said in excitement. Right. May the holy light be with you. Helen exclaimed cheerfully. I feel like the paladins have super powerful combat techniques. Our levels are now low, but we will be unbelievably powerful when we grow stronger. At this moment, Commander Elvin exclaimed while he stared at the quest report in his hands with widened eyes. A report of a Duskwood wolf raid on Northshire? Does the Azeroth continent have a Duskwood too? There is a Brotherhood here too? Right now, the Golden Griffin Knights were doing the Northshire Abbey quest, and Helen was amazed by what she read in the report. The humans wearing red masks. They call themselves the Brotherhood. It must be a coincidence. Another Golden Griffin Knight said casually, it's a coincidence of names. Northshire Abbey was a green valley with all kinds of thick ancient trees, and it was enjoyable to level up, kill mobs, practice skills, and do quests in this dense and vast forest. In this human territory, players could complete quests that would increase their reputation while touring the peaceful and tranquil human land. Perhaps they would understand why they must defend this land while they toured this beautiful place. Outside the tall city wall of the Northshire Valley, a gravel path in the forest led out to Goldshire, the biggest human town besides Stormwind City. Surrounded by tall and thick ancient elwyn woods, the peaceful Goldshire that was on the main road leading to Stormwind City was a miniature of the daily life of people living in Elwyn Forest. Adventurers from all over the world bustled in the inn named Lion's Pride. Obviously, today was the busiest day in its history. Oh, so many people. The Knights of Golden Griffin Legion had just entered the inn, and Commander Elvin called out, a glass of Lion King black beer for each of us. Ha ha ha. They sat down at a table, feeling a bit tired after doing quests for about 2 hours in Northshire Abbey. Beside them were a few members of the Royal Clan Guild such as Royal Princess Jiu, the Second Prince, and some disciples of Shengjing Academy. They slammed their hands on the table and shouted, Servant, get us your best drinks and dishes. The Golden Griffin Knights gaped as they looked over. Anything wrong with what we said? The members of the Royal Clan Guild froze for a moment. Regardless of what background they came from in the real world, the players merged themselves into the game completely. Right now, they were human paladins who had just been recruited and began to learn the basic skills and combat techniques just as they had done when they first became knights. Of course, the skills of paladins looked noble and graceful. They used the platinum-colored holy light and had the holy light spell which could heal injuries swiftly and all kinds of holy seals. This feeling so cool. Looking at the bustling crowds in the Lion's Pride Inn, Elvin felt as if he had returned to his youth when he had just mastered his sword techniques and came out of his home for adventuring. Who said that one could never return to the past? Maybe in another world, people could find a totally different life.